So, I'm trying to think of the funniest fucking thing that I've seen in wargaming for like the last few months. What did I see? Oh no! All fairness to GW, their new was it a new Horus Heresy? Yeah, it was a new Horus Heresy promo video on YouTube. Oh, not YouTube, Instagram, and it was like it was meant to be 80s TV
Oh yeah, with the Joy Toy.
with the Joy Toys. I thought, yeah, that
that's
cool.
fantastic. Yeah,
I want more of that. I want Masters of the Universe style 40k.
We've had like hints of this for the last few years because the Heroic Basing thing that came out like good 6-7 years maybe plus at this point. They had a very similar kind of 80s style commercial and everyone went absolutely nuts for it, for a product that isn't, I don't even know if they still sell it anymore, but I remember the advert. And that's
yes.
There are people in marketing that know what they're doing. No, not all of them, but
Yeah, not all of them, but yeah, it's no, that was good. Like marketing, I think that's one thing GW seems to be really good at these days is their comedic marketing, and it's always that thing where they know where they can be tongue in cheek and satirical, and the games used to be satirical, but are less so these days.
yes.
I think Warhammer Fantasy still kind of toes it in, and Necromunda certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been playing some more Warmachine. That's great. That's all I'm going to say. That's the end of the podcast. No, we've got some stuff to talk about. We've got some stuff to rant about. Oh my god, where do you want to start with your ranty rant?
Oh, it's been a fascinating week because I don't really play mainline Games Workshop games. A bit of Warcry because that's a really nice, elegant system. But that's about it.
Yeah, Warcry's great.
But I mainly play Heresy and Old World. They're my two games.
Yes,
bloody love them both. So both got massive problems.
You haven't just dumped you haven't just taken out a mortgage to buy the old Cathay army, have you?
No, I picked up a couple of sprues on eBay for people that have bought the box and broken it up. Just so
right, okay.
Have a go and see what you like them. Because I don't want to do the same as I did with the City of Sigmar models, which look beautiful, but they are so and Lumineth. Beautiful models on the website, but you buy them, they are so over detailed, they're a nightmare to paint. So,
really?
Yeah, just not. They're kind of okay if you want to go for a very Grimdark Blanchett to slap chops kind of thing, but anything more than that, and they're just horrible to paint. There's so much trim and.
I mean, this is something like I keep thinking. I see more and more of even like professional painters I feel have to paint more often with in that kind of pseudo contrast paint way, in order so that they've hit all the areas of the model, because otherwise I guess in some sense you're damaging your brushes quite a lot by trying to hit all this
more brushes now. I do go off more brushes now. That's not thought about that.
Yeah, well, as I say, playing Warmachine, I've got stuff with lots of big surfaces on it to paint. So that's fun.
Repainting those old Crix models, I'll just smash them out in an afternoon. Just because I use all these techniques, it takes me to paint a handful of infantry. It transfers so well to bigger, simpler models like the.
Well, I say they're simple. I mean, I'm painting for the viewers at home. I'm holding up a Scorn Praetorian swordsman who is covered in trim and is currently painted gold with a wash on him because, oh my god, it's the same problem as Space Marines. No, it's I'm doing those next for when I get round to it. I think my Scorn is going to be a long-term repaint project. But anyway, back to specialist games.
Right. I'll draw
what's your problem now?
I'll draw
What's
you a
happened?
picture first of context and what I like about these two products and why they speak to me, and then we've got a tale of two cities because they've both had massive changes in the last week. And
I did see the errata come out.
It's night and day. But yeah, I'll start. Both of these systems. The reason I enjoy them they are successors to older Games Workshop systems I am more familiar with. I'm not going to say they're better, but I'm more familiar with them. They have a ridiculous amount of complexity. They have a massive amount of mental load for special rules, which the modern game just doesn't have, just because of the way the unit cards are laid out, the way the rules have been streamlined over the years. they've piled stuff on top of that. Particularly 40k is getting quite bad for this, where they've got this elegant, streamlined game, and then they just keep adding more card game one-up bullshit on top of it, just to kind of make it so it's not boring. But Heresy is a successor to 7th Ed 40k, which is a continuation of 3rd Ed, so they were all kind of just iterative. And they did some really nice things with that rule set. They added the reaction system, which wasn't perfect. Some of those reactions were ridiculously overpowered and game-changing, allowing units of 10 las cannons to fire at full efficiency at will at anything that shot at them was probably not a great idea, which meant that every single army had to have a 10-man unit of las cannon marines, otherwise.
Wow.
But still, it was a really elegant way of getting around the problem with Games Workshop's you go, I go like system, which makes it for there for hours, especially a game like Heresy, which is designed to be played with big armies, so you're going to be taking your turns, going to be longer. Beautiful. And Old World, it's basically just 9th edition. It's of fantasy. It's they've gone back to look at 6, they've gone back to look at 8, and they've borrowed a lot from the historical war game that apparently was really, really well liked on those kind of areas. But again, a bit overcomplicated, a few balance issues, which we'll come to in a minute.
I mean, we've said plenty of times, like, I think at its core, I think fantasy looks really good now because it's rank and flank, but units don't just simply break and run and get run down.
But pushing back is really good.
And if I'm right, if you charge, you don't get to strike first automatically. You get an initiative bonus.
You get initiative bonus based upon your distance travel, so you usually will.
Right, which is good because I always got fucked off when like my Chaos Warriors would get charged by a bunch of goblins, and you're just like, why are these bastards hitting me first? Like, come on! Like, it should have been for the Chaos Warriors. It should have been like batter up. Like the goblins coming at you, and they should just be like and hit them for 6. Like,
it's led to some really nice issues on games I've had, like where I have managed to break a unit in close combat and they've run away and I've charged them down and I've accidentally come to contact with the unit behind them and I thought, oh yeah, let's go. Turns out they're only like 2 inches away, so they're struck first.
Right,
so my unit that's charged, like ready to go, it's just brought this little crappy unit. Now it's gone into this big ready to go unit. Then I'm like, oh, I'm striking second, so I just got my head to check. And there's no pushback. So if your front rank gets decimated, you don't get your attacks in. So it's elegant in ways that a game of that complexity shouldn't be, and I've really, really enjoyed my games of it.
You know what? Because obviously there's quite a lot of historical games that get played at the club. I was watching a game of what would it be called? It's a Rick Priestley game, which was for Romans in 8mm.
Is it the Spur one?
But basically, I was watching it, and it didn't take me long to go. It took me about a turn, and I twigged, like, hold on a minute, this is the War Master rule set, isn't it? With tweaks, and they're like, yeah. So I'm kind of like, you know what? Once I've got my Warmachine armies done, and I've got my other bits and pieces done, it's like maybe I get two War Master armies because like War Master's a classic and is tactically deep, but not complicated,
and you can get some legally distinct 6mm fantasy armies on eBay for no money at all. They're 3D printed.
Oh yeah, like the amount of third-party printed War Master armies now are really good.
A legally distinct army of a vampire that may or may not hold the title of a count.
I think
£15 for a whole army that's 3D printed.
I think who was it? Like ROK Miniatures do some really good proxies. So things are good with the specialist games, but
I really enjoyed and Heresy. Really enjoyed that game. I played that more than any Games Workshop game in a long time. I got there because I started getting into first edition Heresy towards the tail end of that system's life, and then when Heresy 2.0 came out, having all that stuff available in plastic and being able to get on the ground floor with rule books and knowing there's going to be gradual escalation of campaign books being released. Knowing the length of time that the first edition lasted for, those books were good for 7 or 8 years. Something I've got and they were beautiful as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful editions.
And
So
now we're into 3-year cycle.
which I was really hoping they wouldn't do, and I think that is the ultimate problem with this, because the way that Heresy is structured as a game, and there are factions, there are sub-factions, obviously there are your different chapters, and there are non-marine factions like your Custodes and your Solar Auxilia, and so on. But basically it's Marines, and you pick your Marines and you have your Marines. So the normal Games Workshop thing of like the 3-year release cycle, and your faction gets its rules at some point in that 3-year cycle, and then they will hold you over until the next one. So you only have to buy a new book every 3 years and a new edition every 3 years. That's the theory. That's how they justify it. It's not untenable to have a 3-year cycle. But with Heresy, you're getting single units for your own army release with every book, and these books are not nothing. They are big, chunky, £30 to £40 books, and if you're wanting to play with that unit and wanting to have the rules legally, you need to buy that book. And there is a lot of good stuff that isn't just tied to disposable rules in there, but it is ultimately a good foot and a half of rule book of £700 that are now pretty pictures, and that's it. In a way that it's, if you chose to buy every book in a 40k edition, like if you bought every army books, that's whatever. You're buying nothing.
Yeah.
You're not expecting them to last for long. Whereas with this, it's got a different tone to it. And then we come to this. The new rules are not a gentle iteration. In the same way that 2 to 1 was. It was 2 to 1 was very, very... It was a bit of streamlining and the reactions adding in and a few tweaks on the rules. But you can even go back to look at the first edition rule books, and most of the character profiles are very similar. Any characters not been brought over at this point, you could just use those rules and profiles and be fine. Cat at me. Shush. Yeah, and this new edition is not that. It is one of the biggest changes I've seen in a Games Workshop system. I think it's the biggest since second to third, I can say.
That's crazy.
Like it's every area of the game has been re-examined in quite drastic ways. I mean, the biggest one is army composition and army building. They have gone from the 3rd edition onwards, 2 HQs, at least 2 troops, 3 elites, 4 more heavy support, fast attack. That structure, that's carried on all the way through up until 2nd Heresy. This new one it's got a more complicated version of the Legion Imperialis army building.
Right.
Which, as you know, is based on the old Space Marine epic, like buying regimental cards and unlocking them. They've now added that system, but it's tied to HQs, your character models. So each character you buy on your army unlocks a epic style regiment card.
Right.
And you can... I doubt there's going to be many armies. It's going to be more flexible. There's going to be armies that you couldn't have before that you can now, and I doubt there's any armies you can have now that you won't be able to have in 3rd edition.
Sure.
If you buy a couple more characters.
Of course.
Because that is...
And characters have got more complicated, because they've brought in like rules for like dueling. And...
Dueling is now basically a mini game in of itself.
Yeah, because you have to pick like your gambit cards and stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like reading rules cold without actually playing a game is very difficult to know what the flow is going to be like. But just knowing the size of what Heresy armies are like and the variety of troop choices and the fiddly... Every weapon has about 3 special rules in this game, and every unit has about 3 different weapons at least. So and then you're going to have about 7 or 8 completely different units, and then tanks got similar things. The mental load of individual rules and what they all do has always been complicated. It's always been difficult, and it's always been part of the fun. But it also meant that every other element of the game had to be streamlined.
Yeah.
To allow you to have that. So the actual core game is very much like a streamlined version of 7th, very similar to 7th edition, but without the nonsense around getting free stuff all the time. But it's adding more characters to the game, but as a requirement to build your armies. I mean, it's fine. The Specialist Game Studio have been releasing so many beautiful models that no one's had any space in an army for, because you can only ever have two normally. Now suddenly everyone's looking at that Forge World shop, the SDS online store going, "Ooh, look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this guy." But if all of these characters are going to be dueling and fighting and having their own little special mini game going off,
yeah,
is that going to slow the game down? It's going to
and
be
then
very...
you can, because you can have, but also you've got your commanders or characters that do that, and then you can also have champions in units who can also take the duels on their behalf. So
they've tied that to an upgrade now, so it's not going to be too overwhelming. But
I'm still in the position of like, I think my problem is with Heresy and why I won't touch it is because I don't know what the easy way into it is, because I don't get the sense of like I could buy a few squads of Marines and a character and feel like I can have a good game with the rules, because the rules clearly are not that. And so we're into this whole thing of like, do I want to paint 40 Space Marines? I don't know. And it's not just, I don't know how big a 2,000 point army for this is going to be, like 40 Marines, a couple of tanks and stuff. No, it's more than that.
More than that. 40 Marines.
Shit.
40 Marines is going to be your core. You've got to have bare minimum. And then you're going to have probably a couple of dreadnoughts of various types, about 3-4 tanks of varying sizes, a couple of big specialist units. So like maybe a heavy weapon squad, some sort of jetpack squad, maybe a squad of Terminators on top of that, 10-man squad. Maybe transport for that. Maybe
is that 2,000 points?
Yeah. Well, that might be more, but the baseline is 3,000. Everyone plays 3K games.
Oh, nuts. Oh, fuck that.
And I would not be surprised if the standard for the 3rd edition is more than that, because they've locked Primarchs to over 3K. Everyone loves to bring a Primarch, so I would not be surprised if the new standard is either 325 or 35 or even 4K at this point.
Wow, that's
They did used to be, I mean, this term's been appropriated by GW for its mainline game, but Boarding Patrol was...
Yeah.
Zone Mortalis, both of those were like sub-games of Heresy that were smaller, troops focused, and they were really fun, especially 1st edition. I really enjoyed those. A couple of units were broken, like some of the Salamanders, Flamer squads were horrible.
I complain about painting that many. I've got an airbrush, like technically, like painting that many, but even with an airbrush, like painting that many fucking Marines.
What you do is you play Iron Warriors.
Get lead belcher.
Spray them all silver, and then you spray them all over the varnish, and then you get some streaking grime, coat them bad boys in streaking grime, and then just get cotton pads and go like this off, and you have a beautiful looking army in about 30 minutes.
It's just, I don't know. It just, like, there's some really nice miniatures in the range. You know what? I'll say this now. Actually, do you know what Horus Heresy fucking needs? Right? It needs for it a good entry point, and that entry point, because you can buy a box of Marines, right, and you could buy a character and so forth. Like, fuck it, just do not even like Boarding Patrol, but like do because of the way the rule system is, I think the profiles there and everything could mostly do a really good, like, almost 40k second, almost feels more like 40k second edition skirmishy Horus Heresy game.
There is definitely scope for that, and that would be a really nice thing. You probably wouldn't need to change the rules very much. You could probably just use the rules as written with smaller points.
Grenade, right? Because grenades still scatter in this game, right? And there's still scatter rules.
There's not. I don't think there's much. Grenades are mainly like defensive,
right?
And like defensive and defensive, like used as part of a charge to give.
I just think there's scope for it, because this is my yeah, go on.
I will say, Games Workshop have thought about people like you, and there is an entry point that it encapsulates everything that Horus Heresy is, and it's called that £190 Saturnine box set that will be out in August. That will get you to about just under 2K. If you take every model in that box set and just paint it as one army, you will be just under 2K. So if you then go to Games Workshop and buy a couple of their nice tanks,
Oh
and
God,
maybe a
no.
squad of other Terminators that catch your fancy, then that'll be up to 3K, maybe even a
In the
Primarch.
time it would take me to paint that, I would paint like I would have painted 2 fucking Warmachine armies. I kid you not.
I think most of my issue with this has been, like, I'm complaining about the Heresy being tied into a 3-year cycle and how annoying it is to have your books kind of completely irrelevant, apart from the pretty stories, which are nothing in those books.
Yeah.
But the thing about Heresy, it's always been this way since it was a Forge World only. It's a rich man's game. To be really blunt, it's not.
It really is.
It's
It's
aspirational. Like, and I for a long time when I was getting into Heresy 1, I could not afford those goddamn Forge World models. And it's when they started releasing plastic, I was so excited. I had like a couple that I got on eBay cheap, a few I converted myself, and like I had like a little core of a Blood Angels army just for myself, just because I was really enjoying those books. But it is, and I've because the games I've played and the tournaments I've been in, you see, it is all middle-aged men that are doing okay for themselves. That
it's
quite nice
historical
cars
wargaming.
and yeah,
It's those type of people,
yeah.
and this has been from I've heard of. I think I was listening to Jugs, and I think Rob said this. Like, it's historical wargamers.
Yeah, it is, and it is because people, if you're not using, I've seen people get mad about not using the correct armor marks and like mixing parts and bits like
Jesus
that.
fucking Christ!
Nobody I've met in person has been genuinely awful about it. You just been more like a gentle loving way. Like,
Well, then they must get really pissy when new Terminator armor patterns just turn up out of nowhere.
Oh, it's all right. It's because the records of the Heresy have been very garbled, and they do drop references to these in the books. It's always like references to like unusual things and like weird bits that are not in there. So
I won't mention that I don't understand how a Marine fits into the new Saturnine armor. I don't understand. Like, it's just mad. Yeah, no, I think there could be an entry point, and I think about this because I watched a bat rep the other day of Warhammer 40,000 Second Edition. Oh my god, it was classic. It was classic Orcs versus Blood Angels, and you know
was that
what?
the minisodes ones?
Yeah,
I love those guys.
It was really good. I was like, not many models, lots of death. I had hilarious dice rolls.
Like the thing I'm painting up at this, like I'm getting my Blood Angels into order for ready for third, and I'm trying to get a old world army that isn't awful together. But the other thing I'm working on in the background is I'm making an army for second and third. I've got.
You're tempting me, you bastard! You're tempting me.
I've got a load of old second edition Eldar model that I've held onto that I'm slowly painting up in garish, horrible colours, and I've got enough spare marine parts.
Are you using Primaris Marines for this as well?
No.
Okay.
It's I'm using some of the Heresy bits, the modern Heresy bits.
Yeah.
Because of the historical wargaming aspect of Heresy, which I really enjoyed, like I picked my Blood Angel army is like from the Siege of Terror, so like basing it and make sure they're on Mark's kind of later era. That's broken me, and I love that. So now
our Heresy scale. Hold on, are Heresy Marines on 32mm?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, they're still on, but and obviously they will be a bit upscale because they're going to be the same scale as modern Space Marines, because they're
slightly shorter than Primaris, but not much.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. You know what? That seems like a valid thing to do, because.
And I'm making a Lamenter's army from the Badab War, which has been really nice. Which
I might have to. You know what? Actually, I'll tell you what might actually tempt me into this entire idea is to do as an entire project, and I'd have to get hold of I'd have to get hold of the fucking rules and the codex, but they're out there. You know what would be really fun? A second edition, because it wasn't the easiest thing to fucking collect in the day, because the miniatures were shit or didn't exist. Second edition style Eldar would be kick ass now. Like, you can actually do it with plastic miniatures now.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool.
That's what I'll be, because I've got a lot of second and third edition era Eldar miniatures, but I'm throwing some modern stuff. I'm using modern Guardians because I didn't have enough old Guardians. Using the modern Wraith Guard, the shorter Wraith models. Because again, I had some of those metal ones that were like £6 each and felt like they were made of gold. But now the plastic ones are much better and cheaper.
So. I may consider that. I may have to go find copies and PDFs of the second ed rules and have a look at like how many models is it. It's mostly not that many models because
No, it's
Eldar
really
was
not,
like,
because I've kept all mine. And
oh, we'll have to theory cast a Ulfway army because Ulfway would be piss easy to paint.
yeah, and I worked out, I think, a 1,500 point Eldar army. You're looking at like a dreadnought, a grav tank, about 15 troops, and a HQ.
Oh my god, that sounds delightful. That actually sounds like fun.
Yeah,
You know what? And psychic powers be good. Even like I'm thinking like you could do such a good second ed Tyranid army now these days as well.
I've started doing this. I've been painting my Leviathan era plastic models in second ed colours because they look fantastic.
You know what? Actually, I don't need to buy a new army for this. I already have a Tyranid army from
Like, this is going to kill you a bit. But
I have a Leviathan Tyranid army. Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They look great on the green bases. This is all contrast paint, obviously, so it's nice and easy.
That's brilliant.
But these were these got me started on this, and then I realised like I don't actually like Tyranids that much.
No, but I can, actually doing a Tyranid army that way would be pretty sweet. The thing is, obviously, that it's a shame because there's like there's some models which obviously don't translate back over, but you know what? The new Biovore's kind of nice, so so what? Like, yeah, that might be an idea.
Yeah, it's
second edition 40k. It seems to is an itch to scratch.
I'm going for 2 because I've been really enjoying rereading 3rd and 4th edition. Like the 4th edition rulebook, core rulebook is fantastic. Like going back to reread that 4th edition core rulebook is incredible. Now there's
Sandy Chambers knew what he was doing.
Yeah, the 4th edition army books are not as good because that started getting a bit flat and weird. But even though they're quite thin and light on bits, the 3rd edition rulebooks are generally army books are generally quite really nicely put together.
Okay, so. Yeah, I was going to say, so Horus Heresy, summary is rich man's historical wargaming man's hobby.
With incredible mental load for rules.
Which has now been fucked over by
new edition. There is scope for improvement, and like just the layout of the rule books in 2nd edition has been an ongoing. Like if you're playing this as intended with just actual physical rule books, and this is a game that has been designed so if you're playing with PDFs, you're actually at a disadvantage because every weapon and every character has keyword rules. Those are not referenced on the unit card. You have to find them in the special rules section. Now, the special rules section is split between the special rules in the core army book. So here,
no.
Relevant Liber. You have no indication where that rule is going to be found on the unit card.
God,
so what you'll do is you'll pick up, unless you remember, that's breaching, that's in the core rulebook. If you can't remember what that rule does, you're going to have to go to the special rules section in here and go, okay, breaching, is that in here? B.
I mean, I say this, Necromunda does this, right? But if you're playing a particular house, generally all the weapons you'll ever buy for your gang are reprinted in that book anyway. But that's just...
Breaching was not in the core rulebook, so then if I was playing a game, I would have to go through the Liber and try to find it there. And
that's a lot of... Also, I'll say this, right? It's a lot of books for a war game to lug around.
It's Old World's inherited the same problem because they're in the same format where they've got a core rulebook that's massive, and then at least it's split into 2, same as this, but then you got your faction rulebook, which is all the goodies. Yeah. So now I'm going to carry all of them, and then
you've got the Arcane Journal. Yeah,
the Arcane Journal. Where at least with Grand Cathay, which is now a new one, you just have to have your little, which is something, but it's a choice, but it does.
It is a choice.
It's you can't just download the PDF of the army book and go to your page.
So
trying to flick between those, trying to do what I just did there to look for a rule in PDFs is virtually impossible unless it's a fully linked one, which you're not going to find legally.
No, you're not. No. So I'm going to put in between before we get into the rant about where Old World's gone. But to summarize, where Horus Heresy is, it's just like you've got blocks of wood that are now no longer worth really much because you got 3-year cycle, which is just okay. Yeah. So Necromunda. I finished my Necromunda campaign finally. After That took 6 months. Because adults time. And no, it was really good. So I feel more clued into how I want to run the next campaign, which is going to be Ash Wastes. But I had to do a bit of like I've already done some pre-planning on it. Like I've scoped out what my gang is going to be like for it, which is going to be Van Saar. Half of them are hoverboards, which is cool, and I've got a Ridge Runner, so that's wicked. But then, if you're using Yak Tribe to do all your gang management stuff, I've had to like start already putting equipment and weapons that are missing in there, and all the territories from Ash Waste, because we're going to play the Cinderak City map. And the thing that I thought was, hold on a minute, which book do I need for all the Ash Waste rules? Like, how do I have everything that I need? Because, of course, the core rule book has Ash Waste rules in it and scenarios for it. But then there was also the book that came with Ash Waste, the bots game, that has all the Ash Waste rules in there and has scenarios. But then there was also Book of the Outlands, which was where the squats turned up, which also had Ash Waste rules in there and scenarios. So it took me a bit of looking between all three to realize I only need 2 of the books, because the Book of the Outlands is at this point almost completely like superseded by the fact that we've got the core rule book. We've also had Ash Waste Nomads come out in a new book, so all of their rules now are in that book. The squats have now got all of their rules in one book. So I've got to work out whether the Book of the Outlands is a book I need anymore. I think the only thing in there, maybe, that is of use is if I was running Palatines with the Tauros.
Yeah.
But that's it. So you get this. But I feel that's what happens with Necromunda is finally you get a house book come out for a particular gang, and it collates a whole load of shit from about two or three old books, and then that book finally shuffles off as it's had all of its stuff harvested out into the other ones, which I think is a perfectly fine way. Well, that's kind of how it should work. I
was going to say, because if Heresy, let's imagine a world where this third edition Heresy hadn't been a hard reset and hadn't been like all your books, previous books, where would that? Because like I said, each one of these has like unique units in it. Would they have been better served if they'd start doing like more like Necromunda style rolling, where you no longer needed to carry around, say, Siege of Chthonian rulebook, because the particular unit in there is now in Liber Astartes Volume 3 or whatever, and then
exactly.
Right? It would have been. It would still would have ultimately ended up the same thing, where that book is no longer the most current one. Maybe in a similar turnaround time 3, but it's more organic, it's more natural, rather than this forced hard 3-year reset cycle. But it used to be like that with the mainline studio edition releases. Third to fourth, fifth of 40k, and most of fantasy you could be using like 2 additional rule books, army books for some factions, and that was generally fine. And it's, I think it's not the 3 edition release cycle for the big box for hype is. It is what it is. It's what Games Workshop realizes making them a lot of money, and it's frustrating. But as long as everyone keeps buying these new box sets, and we all keep getting hyped about these new editions, and we're talking about it now, so we are feeding into it. As long as that keeps happening, they're going to keep doing this cycle. But it's not just the release cycle of the mainline rules update. It's the frustration of the hard reset. It's the frustration of the going back to the drawing board and learning rules and having to forget generation rules, and
it keeps reinforcing the whole thing of like, I know they don't do it, but it's just kind of like, it just makes that it makes you crave more for the fact that you want, at least for the mainline games, at least, like, why have they not just gone fully digital at this point? Because you see how often errata come out, and it's like, at which point your books are useless. And we've said this so many times on this podcast, but I think it's because, like, if you're also involved in like role play games and you understand how role play games are made, like Cubicle 7 doesn't just go, and we put out the book. Like, they put out the PDF first, at least, harvest in all the errata,
Mhm.
and people will go way up. This is completely broken. And you're like, oh yeah, that is a weird interaction that we completely missed. We'll fix that, and then finally, the print one is delivered, which
Yeah.
will be 99% safe.
Well, look at Trench Crusade. Like they keep putting back the print date for the rulebook because they want that to at least be useful for a few years.
Well, yeah. Also, they've expanded vastly and
Yeah.
rapidly.
But,
Yeah,
and that's a tried and tested at this point, like 2.5 year old rule set.
that's
In many ways.
crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. That's that old already in that respect. Wow, it feels so fresh, but it's 2 years old.
Yeah, like I think that's when I first
Bizarre.
came across it. But yeah, like it's it's had quite a nice beta testing period. But
So where's Old World? Because that had
right.
I will see what I will start with what I saw, which was I was watching Hellstorm Wargaming's stream and um looking at the errata for this. And his first point was he didn't understand any of the errata because he doesn't know the game well enough. But
Right.
scrolling through the PDF, and the PDF looked fucking huge. I was like, this is the most. This is literally the ugliest errata release I've seen since a Necromunda one. But our caveat: a Necromunda errata, the Necromunda errata covers at this point looks to bookshelf over 10 books, right?
Yeah.
Some of which are now completely defunct, out of date, and you don't need. But the point is, that's 10 books of errata. But even then, within those books, the errata was generally, if it wasn't the core rulebook, a page of A4. That was all the adjustments in there. This looked insane for Old World.
It kind of is, but it's more because they've made a few core changes. They've had a lot of knock-on effects, so they've had to like cover that just because people. They've one of the main ones I saw. There's two things. I'll go into deeper, but they changed the way magic levels work for wizards, and they changed the way a particular spell category, vortex spells, work in quite a fundamental way, which meant that they've had to recorrect every spell that was a vortex spell, and they had to, because they couldn't just say in the rules any spell with any spell that is magical vortex now behaves like this, because there's a particular flavour of rules nerd that play war games competitively that will go like, well, this one isn't technically a magical vortex, this one is a magical vortex with this, and therefore it doesn't apply, and that would be an argument. So they've had to go every spell so that's why it looks bigger than it is, and it's safer because they've changed the way spell levels interact with dispels and casting to make it so, because level 4 wizards were just dominating. There's no point taking a wizard that wasn't level 4.
Right.
Just because the bonuses you were getting to be a level 4 wizard were so much better than, like, they were only like, I think it was like 30% more, 20% more than level 3, and like 40% more level 2, but their effectiveness was just infinitely more, than where you're basically trying to squeeze as many level 4 wizards in as you could, and that'd be your army building.
Jesus.
No additional thoughts to that. Like, there's never that moment. Oh, should I take a level 3, or should I try and find some points? Maybe like squeezing a level, or maybe I can get 2 and it'll free up some points. That you take 4. You always take a level 4. So they've changed that now, so it's nowhere near as dominating in theory. Not played any games with the new rule set yet, but that also means that they've had to change a lot of spells casting values because they'd be impossible to cast now. So that also means they've had to like patch every spell, saying that can't change the casting value and tweak all of them, which is, it's fine, but again, it means they've had to overly detailed redo all the rules because people would argue about it. But overall, most of these changes are quite good and what the game needed. And they're also releasing, I think it's next week, maybe the week after, they're releasing a matched play guide, which on its surface it's just some missions and some plays for tournament ideas, but it does a lot of great things for the game, because a lot of the best things that Hollow introduced, like the fallback in good order and that push-pull of combat, great, but it's not really served very much. There's times when you end up getting pushed out of your line and then suddenly your flanks are exposed, which is quite exciting and does some dynamic stuff for the games. But you want those moments to be when you're trying to hold an objective. Like, if you're a big block of units desperate trying to hold an objective and then get pushed back on the last turn, that'd be fantastic. But there's not really, the core rules, the core missions don't really have anything that supports that kind of gameplay.
That's really interesting, because I was saying this about in the previous episode when I was talking to Chris Allen about this, is that Warhammer of all the games, other than Warcry and Necromunda, obviously, I think mostly Legions Imperialis because that's got a. I've yet to play, god damn it, but that
Yeah,
has
same.
a heavy objective play
Yeah.
to it. And again, things can flee and so forth in that. And then of course, Titan Legions. I need to play some more of that. But there's they're all those are all quite dynamic games because not only do you move, you can be forced back by some effect or
Yeah.
psychology of losing a fight. Whereas again, I think modern 40k, you and this was described like Chris Allen was saying, like if you get out of your L-shaped cover, you're going to get shot and possibly like
Yeah.
deaded quite quickly. And so there isn't much going on. You know, the only reason you're going to get out of there is so you can get out onto an objective, hold it to score a point, and then get deaded.
It's
There
both
isn't,
that scene are just like trying to stand on a circle without dying, and
and you don't
it's
get
fine.
pushed off them. It's just do
Yeah.
you weather the storm or not,
Yeah.
which is really dull.
Yeah.
Um,
But the FAQ on Old World and the match play rules, these are
yeah,
they're one and the same. It's basically like it's basically I've seen people refer to it as a 1.5 rules update, which is
yeah,
not unfair, and it does work because these new missions they have added a lot of objective play. You can stack them as well. They've added things like you can bring baggage cart. Like one of the mission types is baggage cart for your army, where you have like a unit sat in your board quarter that if the enemy destroys, they get a ton of victory points. It could be like it can basically swing the game. Basically, even if you wipe out half their army, if they can take your baggage cart and get a couple of objectives, it could be a draw.
but that's cool because that promotes a bit more diversity in your armies.
Yeah, and that's the other part of this. Like up until this, bog standard infantry in the old world has had nothing to do and is incredibly disposable and is not really been worth taking, apart from just hitting your basic core minimum stuff. Core infantry has been, apart from a couple of outliers, basically pointless.
Yeah.
And it's basically just it's something you want to take as little as possible because it's just free victory points for a lord and a dragon to come and eat.
Yes.
And they've now, again, with these new missions, most of the missions require core infantry capture. So there's a lot of like, there's one that's a special feature, which is like a wizard's tower or whatever. I think that sits right in the middle of the board. And again, you have to be a core infantry unit standing it.
Yeah, because you need to garrison it. Yeah,
and it's all, and you can have all these happening at once. You could have these board quarter ones, there's mission objective token ones, and there's your special feature. So if you're taking a couple of units of core infantry, they've got something to do. And now you've got if you're fighting someone that's got a big scary lord or a dragon that can mince anything, he's not going to be able to mince all of these in like the 4 turns.
No, exactly.
So it's instantly made the game more interesting overnight. And now with the FAQ, they've also added a lot of tweaks to infantry work. They've basically just given them a bunch of rules to make them more stable if they're defending things. They've made it so sword and shield now gives you an extra armor point save, and if you're getting charged, you can fight in 2 ranks. If you've got speed, you can fight 3 ranks. None of this was in there before. And
That's good.
So it's making Warhammer look more Warhammery because again, most of the armies I've played.
It sounds more and more like as it should have been from.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It sounds more Warhammer Ancients.
Yes,
it feel
that's the one I forgot the name of. That's the one that based a lot of the rule set on. So it's really promising, and I am excited. There are a couple of things that come up in this rule change that are classic Games Workshop overcorrections, where one of the big ones is it's still a problem in this. Dragons on this game are dominating.
Yeah.
And basically a list that can take more dragons will win. There are ways around it, and some of the armies have found one of the most common ways to deal with dragons, apart from taking your own, has been big blocks of archers with poison arrows because they do auto wound. And it's particularly with Tomb Kings because they get lots of cheap archers and goblins. Stick the banner on that gives them poison. 50 poison arrows shooting in your face will quickly take down a dragon, and
your odds are pretty good.
Yeah, it was quite good. And my Wood Elf army that I played a fair few games with at this point. I took to a tournament, did awfully. Got second best painted, but didn't really fully win a game. But that was all poison archers, just because, again, when you're Wood Elves, you're trying to be sneaky. So these are all little units. I'm not sure how much I enjoyed playing that. I felt like I was trying to play 40k. I was playing 40k in fantasy just because I had lots of little units of little bits of shooting. Not quite got there yet. But again, that was poison because it's quite a nice rival. they've seen that people are using that to fight dragons,
Yeah.
don't like it, and they've just made it so poison no longer auto wounds. It just gives you a plus on its wound roll, but it's not enough for basically now you're very unlikely to kill a dragon with even a big block of infantry that's got poison. So they're just and they keep doing this, keep overcorrect. They'll see a thing happening in a game that's an interaction that they don't like and don't want, and rather than look at the deeper causes of that, they'll say like, well, why are people feeling the need to take 50 archers with poison to kill dragons? Like, oh, it's because dragons are dominating the game in a way that is really hard to answer to. They don't look at that side of it. They just go, well, we don't want that, so we'll get rid of that. I did it with my wood elves because I've got right here, all the little wizards like Sisters of the Thorn. They can take a bound spell, and Pillar of Fire was just an auto take bound spell for that battle magic because it will just delete heavy cavalry because it's just massive multi wound, massive strength, and massive armor penetration, and you can control it and just go delete. Any Bretonians could just delete an entire squad with one spell. It was ridiculous, and I didn't take that spell in the tournament because I thought, you know what, I reckon this unit's will become quite good with some of the spells, and it was fine. But rather than like looking, why is everyone taking Pillar of Fire, not looking at anything else? Because certain kinds of cavalry are overuse and hard to fight. They just made it so that unit couldn't pick spells anymore. They had to randomly generate them, which is again, it's the seeing an issue, not looking into the core like need, not looking to why that's an issue, and just hotfixing it.
Wow.
It's very reactive, and it's not always. It's inelegant. It's reactive, and it feels bad. I think that's the thing. It's a feels bad when this is the community coming up with clever ideas to deal with problems in their game design.
Yes,
and having a big scary dragon should be a terrifying threat. If you're a little guy with a spear and shield that's not even got any shoes, and a dragon's coming down with a 700-year-old elf lord on top, you probably should be like scared about that. But at the same time, if it's literally dominating the game, and the armies that generally do best in tournaments are the one that can fit the most dragons in, like Chaos can. And this is another part of this where they've done some tweaks now where dragons in challenges won't dominate tiny units again. I think it's tiny trying to keep those defensive infantry blocks alive a bit better. But then they just add Chaos Dragons are one of the worst ones I've seen. You can fit 3 Chaos Dragons quite easily into an army. They've made so lower level champions can take them now as well. So I've not seen if you can fit 4 in an army yet.
Wow, that's mad. That's like completely bonkers.
I'll wrap this up because I've been talking too long. But the other part of this is, and it's Games Workshop being Games Workshop. The Army of Grand Cathay is part of this package. They've clearly been designed with 1.5 in mind. They are the first like holistic new faction, basically half a faction at this point, because the model release is quite thin on the ground. And while they have got their Grand Army, which is in an Arcane Journal like format, but it's the same layout as all the Grand Armies in the thick rule books. It's the same feeling the first time I looked through the first Tau rule book, or like when Games Workshop used to release a new faction, they'd always be tip top to encourage you to buy them. Like when Knights first came out, when Flyers first came out, it's like always the thing. They want people. This new release obviously has to enter on a level playing field. It has to be competing whatever the best builds are, and that's always going to be an issue because again, Games Workshop are terrible balancing. So there's always going to be a couple of dominant builds in anything. And if they'd released this army and they weren't to par with these dominant builds, no one would buy it, which is fair. Right. But god damn, it's going from like trying to make my Wood Elf army work and like thinking about builds on that, thinking about like every kind of building, like because the Arcane Journal for the Wood Elves is quite recent, and I think that was probably made with 1.5 in mind. There's nothing in there that really I look at and go, oh yeah, that'd be really good to have that. That'd be really cool. Whereas every single unit in this Grand Cathay army is the best version of that. Their dragon is the best dragon. Their core bog standard human infantry is impossibly better than any other humans. Like compared to if I was an Empire player, like comparing the stat line of their basic trooper to a veteran Empire State man, I think they're like there's a points difference either way, and they've got like pit better armor save, pit better leadership, better weapons. It's just
that shit. They're basically elves.
Oh yeah, I think it was the Square Based podcast with Rob from Jugs.
Yeah.
And as they're going through the book, it's like, oh yeah, they've got that from Chaos. Oh, they've got that from Chaos Dwarves. That's actually like ogres. Okay, that's from elves. That's from Britain. They've basically got it's the best of the best, and it's kind of it is disheartening. Like, and I know they're trying to get people hyped to buy the new army, but like, it's the
There's got to
feels
be
bad.
better ways. Yeah.
It's the feels bad.
Wow.
So it's even you got to take the rough with this movie, but even in this era of positivity where I'm enjoying where the old world is, I'm very excited to see fantasy be a valid concern and like an ongoing evolving game that is getting meaningful content. Like this match play guide and these FAQs, as gobbledygook as they are, I feel like when you first blush read them, and as silly some of the bits are, it's still nice to see that at least they're trying in a way that they
Yeah.
don't very often with their core games. Like we had none of this. Like to compare that to Heresy 2.0, Heresy 2.0 had a couple of dominant builds where dreadnoughts, the standard dreadnought was obscenely good,
Yeah.
and you could take 3 of those in every slot. So you could technically take 9 in an army. Pretty much every gaming venue I played at have comped that, so you could take 1 per slot just to stop people from doing that, because they were unbelievably overpowered for their point. Well, sorry, points efficient is the term I like.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of other units like that where they were just you could just take an army of all of these efficient units, and that'd be 3/4 of your army. Fill in the gaps of whatever your particular flavour of army likes, and you're going to do just fine. It did mean that a lot of the armies looked very identical in most tournament play,
Yeah.
and they did nothing to correct that at any point. Like they didn't, they could have tweaked dreadnoughts quite easily. Could have tweaked las cannons. Could have tweaked a bunch of the reactions in general, and they just didn't. If they'd done a 1.5 FAQ for Horus Heresy, like they have done with Old World, that was similarly effective, I'd probably be suggesting at this point we just ignore 3.0 and just carry on playing with 2, because 2.0 was close to being a really solid system that I could just play forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why I'm a little frustrated with how drastic an overhaul this has been. It may be a fantastic game. Like I've not obviously
But it's relearning it all again
Yeah.
effectively to a certain extent, and that's always the
yeah, because it's going to be 6 months to a year of playing games before I get as aware of the flaws in this new one, and I know there's going to be flaws because.
And I think that's why I find with their 3-year release cycle and the fact they can drastically change the game system, or they do a really poor job of putting it out and then have to do ridiculous errata overhauls without digital rule books, and the fact that the the game isn't scalable, as in it expects you to be playing 2,000 points or whatever. It means by the time you feel like us, got a painted army, and you go, I can play and enjoy it, the rules have already gone through maybe 2 or 3 errata, and your army book has finally actually arrived for that edition, and a whole over other stuff. It's just like it's so relentless, and it doesn't give you time to like breathe, which is
we're looking at this now. The old world now is in if the old world sticks to a 3-year cycle, and we have no reason to doubt it is, we're now halfway through it.
Yeah.
Which like I said I'm quite frustrated with my Wood Elves. I'm not enjoying the way they're playing. It's a combination of not fitting with my playstyle and the tweaks they've made have made a bunch of playstyles that I've used in previous editions that were fun and not as fun to play with anymore.
But this, I'll say this: they're mostly setting up though to like really overhaul all the armies for the next edition, because that's going to be the edition where they bring out the new models.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the legacy factions, all the stuff that went Sigmar that they left out of this one. Because it's been quite clear that a lot of the Sigmar release schedule has been desperately trying to move away from the fantasy models so they can bring them back. Stuff like the Soulblight Gravelords, that refresh didn't need to happen on a lot of those models, like a lot of the new Whites and Black Knights and stuff. But I think that's just so they can now release Vampire counts with the older models as a separate faction.
Yeah. You're gonna have the old style skeleton warriors turn up for Old World, which you'd be a fool to buy, because let's be honest, the new ones are so much nicer.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating with any of the units that are in both games, where even the new rulebooks will be showing you the old models, like the Wood Elves, the Dryads they're showing in the rulebook in the Arcane Journal. They're the old metal Dryads.
Yeah.
Because the nice plastic ones that came out in like 6th edition fantasy, they're still in Sigmar. They're still the Sigmar dreads. And
again, why would you use the metal ones? Like,
yeah,
that's just painful.
It's because they're trying to keep the IP separate for licensing purposes. But it does lead to hilarious situations like that where, like, oh yeah, Tree Man, yeah, you can use the either the really gnarly one or the Trish Carden one from like 30 years old, or
what are they going to do with Skaven? Like, Skaven's a really weird one.
Skaven is
Skaven.
They've re-released most of the models apart from like because a lot of stuff like the Screaming Bell and a lot of the
it'll be a case of that they'll release new versions for Age of Sigmar, and then all the old miniatures will just be put back
Skaven
out.
Are a rough one because they were one of the most popular factions in Fantasy.
Yeah,
and they are the poster boy. They're the main villains at the moment in Sigmar, but their range is still largely ancient to the point where they're not. If they've not done it already for the re-release, they're not going to refresh it in the next year or two. Like,
wow.
We might get new Plague Monks, we might get a new Screaming Bell, but I doubt it. And without those, they're not going to move them back to Old World. So I've got a box of Skaven up there that I've been collecting for donkey's years that I keep doing with Horde army, so I keep putting them off. And they're worth nothing.
Nutter. You absolute nutter. Why do Horde armies?
Because I keep getting tricked into... Because I started doing Cities of Sigmar, and like, oh no, it turns out they're quite a Horde army. And then I found a load of Orcs and Goblins, and went, oh, I just like painting them. They're obviously Horde army.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to go sideways on the special scopes. I was going to run you through what before I talk Warmachine White, how the recent bat rep went and what's cool about the new Old Umbre, because all the rules are now out for it since we last chatted. So, because I said Necromancer's going to be Ash Waste, so I thought I'd go through listeners. This is what I'm going to run for my starting gang. So, Vansar, you've got 1,400 creds because you've got to afford a vehicle as a starting amount of creds. So we've got my Vansar gang leader, the gang leader prime, has got Combi Las Plasma pistol, so that's all right. An energy shield, that's all right. Mesh armor, armored body glove, and Ashwace grav cutter. So, because if you're on a grav cutter, you don't get the benefits of cover.
Jeez.
So yeah, I know, right? But you are movement. You do get +2. Yeah, you do get +2 on your movement for the grav cut. So technically, they're movement 6, and that's in Ash Waste not to be sniffed at. And with the body glove and mesh armor, so that's mesh armor is a 5+ save. Body glove takes that to 4+ save. Energy shield takes it to a 3+ save, and in close combat takes that to a 2+ save. So that's a fun start. And then she's also got trick shot, so she can actually ignore cover modifiers. Then my Orc mech, which is basically a champion, is on foot with a plasma gun, a las pistol, and a smoke grenade with flak armor and body gloves. So the idea about him is he'll be, the Ridge Runner. It's got space for a person to sit on the back.
Yeah.
So he's basically riding the back with a plasma gun, just killing people down, which is fun. And I could have gone with a melter, but a plasma gun's a bit more versatile because you've got rapid fire on it, and at short range it gets +2 to hit, which is you're going to get in range because you're on back of a vehicle, for God's sake.
And it feels more high tech as well, which fits with the vibe. Yeah. It's more thematic.
He's also got a smoke grenade, which is good. So on the vehicle, he can chuck down a smoke grenade, and the vehicle will just be like, can't be hit, because that's just rude. And then I've got from the Hive Secundus box, there was the new specialist Vansar.
Yeah.
So I've got one of those models, which is a tech specialist, and they're the one which is called I can't remember what it is, but basically he's armed with a long las. So he's on foot with a long las. So that's a 36-inch range las gun. Well, that's actually which is strength 4, +1 to hit long range, and is 2+ ammo roll with plentiful. So unlike a normal sniper rifle, he is not going to run out of ammo on this.
Yeah.
So
sit there all day.
Then we've also got then we get my Jeeves. So I've got 2 Neotechs, which get grav cutters for free, because they're from because they do for their points value, and they have got las pistols and energy shields and flak armor and armed body gloves. So against ranged shots, they've got 4+ armor saves, but they've the energy shield they can use in combat, and also because their grav cutters are slightly different to Ash Waste ones. So, because they get them for free, they can use them in Underhive games, but we're never going to do Underhive games in this campaign. They can do ride-by attacks, which is fun. Then we've got the Ridge Runner. So I've got a Ridge Runner with twin-linked heavy stubbers on it, so that's fun. So that's 2. So twin link means you've got 2 rapid fire dice, and you can re-roll the rapid fire dice because it's twin linked.
Yeah.
And it's not the toughest vehicle in the world. It's only effectively got a toughness of 5 and 4 on the sides, but it's fast, and I can always put on it a las cannon later, because that's terrifying. And then I've got finally a regular ganger, with a las pistol and suppression laser. So he's got the laser shotgun.
Yeah.
So that's the gang for like that. For it's only 7 gangers and a vehicle, and 3 of them are on grav boards.
I was going to say it's all fancy toys though, which is thematically appropriate.
I feel like it's got a lot of good range game. Like I'm not going to. Like the reason for the leader to be on the grav board was to get up close and nasty with a plasma pistol, and to group activate the Jews on their grav boards. So essentially, they can all rush forward, pin people, and then shoot them to death with the plasma gun. And then at some point, the Jews will get like hot shot laser power packs on their las pistols and stuff, or las sub carbines, so they've got rapid fire las pistols. So it's gonna be interesting what anyone else takes. My mate Colin, he's gonna mostly have squats, so they're gonna be fucking hard to kill. They've been the bane of my campaign previously because they're just being toughness 4 is so annoying in this game. It's just and that because we got to the point where we were taking like the big the brutes. So he had his squat prospector armored battlesuit thing that was like toughness. I think it was like toughness 5 or 6, and just trying to shift that off the board, and it would just come up to you with flamethrowers on it, and you're just like, no. So that's the plan. I don't know how that sounds to you then.
It sounds fun, and that's all you ever want.
Definitely, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be. I'm going to do a few trial games with it, and everyone's going to have a few tester games before the campaign starts on that properly, just to see whether your build is kind of how you want it to play. But I think it feels Ash Wasties, which is good. And a lot of things are mounted. Like the only other way I could have gone is I've got some Gene Stealer Cult bikers. I could have done a Gene Stealer Cult gang with like a bunch on motorbikes and a Goliath truck with an autocannon, and just been like
playing Gorkamorka.
Playing Gorkamorka, yeah. I mean, it's and it's been interesting because like I've seen people playing people were playing Gorkamorka actually at the club recently as well as a campaign, and they were asking me how Necromunda works differently. And I said, like, how it's not I go and then you go, it's alternating activation. I'm like, oh, that would make it much better, like not being shot off the board in one bad turn. So that's the plan with that. So that's my one bit of hobby, and why I've got some more grav boards to make my gang leader and do a champion or 2 on grav boards, because I just like the idea of some guy on a grav board with like a melter gun or a plasma cannon. It's completely insane, but you can do it, which is going to be he just needs a plasma cannon, a suspensor, so he can move and fire, and that means then he can move 6 inches and shoot a plasma cannon. I think that's over the top. I think it's going to be melter guns, because like plasma cannon, well, it depends. Some bastard's going to take a really expensive like armored truck, aren't they? So a plasma is kind of good. It makes you scared, like some Delac's going to run around with a las cannon. just yeah, that's the fun of it. Though the weirdest thing we used in the final finale scenario, we did a gang assault. So we had the leader of the campaign attacked by all the other gangs.
Right.
And so we used the gang stronghold terrain, which looked amazing on the board, done up and everything. And then the sentry guns. Sentry guns are insane. They fire every time someone ends their activation in their line of sight.
Jeez.
But as they fire, they get heat. You have to roll heat for how much they heat up by. So they overheat, and once they overheat, they have to cool down. So they're very much like aliens. So,
Yeah.
but you've got sentry gun heavy stubbers. That's terrifying. But sentry gun twin linked grenade launchers is also like mad. So they're just firing out frag grenades at you. Like, what? So those are going to be fun for when we do Ash Waste games where you've got like a classic Gorka Morka style fort in the middle, and you've got vehicles circling trying to get in. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then, yeah, like I said, I recorded a back rep of Warmachine. We played 50-point game using the Brawl Machine community scenarios. So it's funny what you were saying about how Warhammer Old World is getting good objective play, where push and pull off objectives like matters. So you can't just sit on it. You're gonna flee and so forth. So Warmachine's got lots of good objective play because I was using the Crix with the Cephalax. So I had the Cephalax command cadre. I took a chicken jack, turkey jack, with a gun on its back, and then I took I took the Iron Lich Commander for some soul stealing, which turned out really useful. And then I also had a unit of sludge thralls. So they're able to shoot out spray shots of corrosion effects. And then I was up against, so my mate used, and I've not played using them myself, the grave diggers. So he had the command cadre of them with Plugger, who has like chain guns on the top of it. He then tooled up the light warjack with a tracer round, a tracer cannon, and a sniper cannon. So that basically means he's got a cannon that, if it hits, makes you easier to then be hit by more guns because it's firing tracer rounds.
Right.
And then he's got a unit of gravedigger trenchers. I say trenchers, they're called rangers, but they've basically got rifles or machine guns. And then he's got was there anything else in there? He had the rowdies. And basically what I was up against is a true Signar shooty army. Like, the amount of gunfire that got leveled on I should have, because you can pre-measure. I should have measured things a lot better, but my sludge rolls got like absolutely annihilated in one turn. I gave them stealth; they should have not been able to be shot at. But what he did was walked up to them with his commandos, fired a flare grenade at them. So that means they then lost stealth to everyone.
Oh, okay.
And then they got shot by everything.
That's a nice tactical play, that is.
It is a good tactical play. And then I basically was at that point kind of like, I was thinking I was going to lose on VPs, I think. So, and because I lost a unit, I had the only way I could claim the objective was to push my other unit off the objective they were sat on and go for them. And they were able to weather a storm of like everything against them because they basically took tough rolls, and I revived one from the dead and stuff like that, and they were regenerating health. So they were pretty fun. And then in a turn, like, Plugger with his chain guns took almost 20 of the 30. No, it was like 29 of the 36 health boxes off my monstrosity. That was insane. I could not, like, he pumped everything into it, and then it survived enough that I was able to, like, basically do a cast to kill where I, like, knocked him down and then dragged him into close combat and just flattened him. But it was really there was some really interesting synergies with like for me it was like stealing, like as things of mine died that were living or things of his that were living, I was able to get souls onto my Iron Lich who could then allow units nearby to re-roll dice, so that was always useful. And then for my mate Alex who was playing with the Gravediggers, there were synergies of like, as I say, like removing stealth off people and stuff. And the reason I was able to get, I think the reason I was able to get a caster kill was because he wasn't utilizing the fact that he could lay down like in one turn he could have laid down a whole wall of smoke grenades.
Yeah.
And didn't. And I was like, that could have like tilted things a bit more in his benefit. But yeah, there's so many interesting synergies in that game. Like, because in the command cadre, I was beginning to notice that if I got my monstrosity up in the enemy's face early on, it makes all of my spells easier to hit with, and it makes his spells cost more. So I'm kind of getting more of a grip of like how aggressive do I need to be with my crits with this Cephlax? The answer is really fucking aggressive.
Gotta be in there to steal those souls.
And the thing was like, I was with claiming the objective, and this goes back to that whole push and pull with things, is that if I'd got closer, I could have, with my Warcaster, targeted the models that were claiming the one objective that he was sat on, and just shot at them. And his shooting attack pushes models away, so I could literally just push them off objectives.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't score. So I'm beginning to get my eye on with the crits. That's about this kind of, especially with the Cephlax. Cephlax is movement shenanigans. Either you're pushing people away, or you're pulling them towards you with your harpoon drag type attack, or there's also an arcane attack on one of my solos, which on my Cephlax solos called Befuddle, which is target model moves, and it just moves towards you like 3 inches and does nothing else. And it's like, so you can pull things off objectives. And again, I keep contrasting this with like Warhammer, with like where the Warhammer games are like with things like Warcry has a lot of good push and pull. Like certain models in there do have push and pull abilities, and Necromunda has some things like Impale or Blast, has knockback and things like that. And that's less for objective and more like you're trying to get extra damage when people get thrown against walls or they get pushed off balconies. But I'm glad to hear that Old World's got more of that dynamism with how things interact. I think that's good for that game, and I think other games could. I don't know about Age of Sigmar. Again, I feel Age of Sigmar doesn't have that even.
No, I'm not playing the games. I've not even touched this edition, but I watch it a fair bit and try to keep an idea on the rules. And so much of that game is just standing on circles, having that more dynamic play with certain units. It would open up more things for certain units because it's all about now. It's just your damage output efficiency.
Yeah,
like Sigmar's been for like a couple of editions. It's like you take the most damage output efficient units you can. A couple of big monsters that are tough and can also do a lot of damage and that have good synergy with each other and they help amplify that damage and resist resilience. And that's your army. You just stand in the circles.
Exactly. Because like with Warmachine, you can totally I've been finding again, it's relearning these things over the last few months of properly getting back into playing and doing demos. Is showing people you could win on a caster kill, sure, but if you lose your eye on the objectives, your opponent might have tools in there to really mess with that and suddenly get ahead on points. And I think that's why it feels like it's not a complicated game, but there are multiple ways. It feels like there's multiple ways to win.
Yeah.
The other thing I found really good, and because we were playing the Warmachine scenarios, is that I like the fact that it's got kill boxes. So kill boxes is if your leader model is within 12 inches of your battlefield edge at the end of any turn starting from the second turn, you on the end of your turn, it's the end of your turn, so it's the end of your activation. If they end their activation within 12 inches of their battlefield edge, on the second turn or afterwards, you lose your opponent gains 2 VPs.
Okay.
So it forces you to be aggressive.
Yeah, to get out of that.
And that I find also quite good, because it just, again, it stops you doing that whole thing of like, I've got an entire gun wall, you can't come up to me, and I'm just going to hold back.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fun. So I've been looking at like trying to diversify my terrain collection as well. So I've got some water features I need to repaint because I just scratched up. All that ice terrain I was really happy with. So there's some flat, broken ice patches that I use as rough terrain, just to help, create areas where you slow down the enemy. I want to find some good, like, cloud effect terrain. So essentially, it would represent areas of fog.
Okay.
Because one of the options in Warmachine and terrain is you can start the game with fog patches on the battlefield, and you then randomly see if they clear through the game.
I guess apart from like airbrushed cotton wool that you pulled apart, it's not really going to.
Yeah, some people do some nice 3D printed, like nebulous cloud things. Yeah. And there's also rules for like quicksand. There's also rules for things on like firestorms. So if you go through that, there's a chance you get set on fire. So yeah, I'm just trying to I think that's where my path is with, as I get Old Umbre, which I think is going to be the last army I build up. I don't think I said I'm not going to buy another Warmachine army.
Last plan.
The last planned one. The other ones that get odds and sods added to them. I'm really then heavily into like getting my terrain sorted out, because I have a lot of that Dark Fantastic Mills. I've just got the where is it? I'll show you. For the viewers, they should go to Dark Fantastic Mills. They look up Jaegerholm, and they look up the what's it called? The blacksmith's house, and that's what I've got. It's about, I would say, 6 inches long and about 4 inches wide piece of terrain. That's a building. And it looks like that. So I've got that, obviously, and I've got all the terrain that I think you've seen before at PeachCon. So I've got more of a township as well for terrain. So yeah, I've got Warmachine's just proving a lot of fun, and reminding me about making certain dice rolls exciting. And I feel like, when you've got buckets of dice and it all averages out in the wash.
Yeah. I
was thinking maybe this is why Warhammer Old World is doing quite well in its own right as well, because you can get exciting moments triggered off a single dice roll, which is like a leadership test, or a magic spell gets fired off,
or cannon shots like that.
And I think it's those singular moments where it hinges on that single dice roll that feels exciting. Whereas if it's a bucket of dice, I say that like maybe it's weird. It's weird because I guess the bucket of dice, if you're doing archers, is fun in its own right.
I was going to say, I feel like that we've accidentally stumbled upon. That's all GW's army system design, is that it's really fun rolling big buckets of dice. It feels really satisfying to do that, and it's hilarious. It's something great about it. And like whether it's a volley of arrows or a volley of bolter rounds, it's fun. But also like those really important moments where it's like you're rolling a dice or 2d6, and like you if you need an 11, it's really high and everything slows down. Those are the best moments of the game, and I feel like they're just basically designing all their systems around that, which is fine. And is that what's fun?
Yeah, I think there's it's strange, and I can't figure it out. Like, I think it's combat feels. I think the problem is that if it's just regular combat, it feels like I say, you go, I've got 10 Marines. You work out the math. You should basically just remove 2 models off the opponent's squad.
Well, Sigmar's getting quite bad for that, where because it's got fixed like damage output and wounds, you could basically reduce a lot of interactions to that if you wanted to.
Whereas like I think with Warhammer Old World, it's mostly different because archers feel like archers because you are rolling a bucket of dice, but then it all hinges on that leadership test. So it does feel like you've got a momentous point where if you could somehow nudge that dice roll, even by +1 or +2, like from the combat or from a spell or a banner, it also matters. I think that's the point. Is it's got to feel like it matters,
Yeah.
and 40, yeah, that's where I'm erring to. And obviously, this is all just fitting into my mind of like, how do you design a war game
Well,
where you make every dice roll feel important?
yeah, because that's one of the problems with modern 40k is it's so easy to get rerolls on everything. There's always a stratagem, there's always a command that you can issue to get a reroll. So that it's very rare you are stuck on those single dice rolls because there's usually a way out of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with Warmachine, it's like you've only got so many points here available to go. I want to boost this, but do I boost to attack? Do I boost to damage? And then you have to go. You look at the odds of it, and then you're like, well, I want to boost actually because I want the odds of having a critical occur more easily, which is where you roll a double in the dice roll. Or,
I think
and as I was saying, like the Iron Lich Commander, because he was gaining souls and getting those soul tokens that I could spend, it suddenly became this new extra resource that allowed me just that extra edge. And it all feels like those are extra little points that are important to gather and conserve. Whereas, as you said, like 40k seems like there's always a solution to push it, but everyone has those.
And it's one of it's again, it's untested at this point, but one of the big changes for another big change for 3rd edition Heresy is they've removed a lot of traditional rerolls. Twin linked for weapons, I don't think that gives you a reroll anymore.
Right.
Things like a bunch of the special effects like Shred, they don't give you rerolls anymore. They've removed a lot of readily available built-in rerolls. Now, if this is there's something here. I feel like this is a motion where they're moving the game design from having easy access to rerolls and losing that, because it builds in a reliability.
Yeah.
And if a unit is more reliable, it will always be the best unit. So
yeah,
it's the fundamental flaw in GW design is where we are tying random results to actions that should be dependable. So there's always an element of even the most hyper capable space marine in the world will miss a shot sometimes, but because of the way the rules are built up, there are some units that are less likely to miss, and they are less going more reliably get around that. Like they die.
It's why
something there.
I was saying with Chris Allen about this, and this is where I'll get your view on it, right? And this is where we end the episode, I'm sure, before we plug stuff coming up. I've compared now. I think I've worked out what I would compare 40k to, modern 40k to. It feels like Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
The reason for this is every army has stratagems that are seemingly unique to them, and they will have their own flavor text, and they have their own description of the rule. And even if they're similar to each other, they're written in their own way to make that awful. So in order to understand, like for me in Warmachine, to understand my army, I look at the stats. And generally, the only thing that is unique to my army is the Warcaster's feat. So if someone says, and my Warcaster casts Revive, Revive is the same wherever it turns up in some Necromancy army, it's Revive, and you understand it. And if someone says this gun has knockback or knockdown, you get it. You don't actually need to understand much more of the gun. Also, because the game is the game and the rules are free, it makes it very easy to read up on other factions and just have a browse and be like, okay, I understand. But there isn't like there's universal rules. Whereas the comparison is, I've tried to get Sam into playing Vampire. What was it? Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, which is a non-collectible card game, but it's basically Vampire the Eternal Struggle. And she fucking hated it. Do you know why? Because, and I've had this discussion with James, because James has worked on Magic the Gathering online and designed card game and everything. It's because Magic the Gathering ultimately has some very simple rules, but every card is its own rule, essentially. And they add, and if you're playing Magic the Gathering, you play a few releases combined together. There are so many different rules that you have to understand everything on your cards that's in your deck that might turn up versus everything in your opponent's cards that might turn up. So you have to understand it all. You can't just learn the rules. You have to learn all the cards. And I feel that's where we are with 40k. You have to learn all of the stratagems because there are no universal rules. Whereas I think Age of Sigmar is better than this because there are there's less unique command, whatever the fuck they're called.
There's still quite a lot of individual stuff and bullshit that individual factions can play, and even old world suffers from that a fair bit. Like if you don't like one of the tournaments I played against a dwarf army, and I didn't realize that he had part. Even though it's not called the Slayer's army, it's basically one of the sub faction rules, and it was basically a Slayer's army, and all the stuff I was having a great time of killing, I was not getting victory points for. He was getting victory points for it dying.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I didn't realize that because I'd not read the Arcane Journal for Dwarfs when I played that tournament.
Yeah. I mean, really, I think a Slayer player should tell their opponent immediately.
Probably,
Remember, I get points for this.
But it's a tournament, so you kind of it's organised play. So if your lack of awareness is not
that feels a bit like.
Still, I had a great time killing all these dwarfs, and the fact that I lost that game, it was close anyway, and the fact that I lost it on points by a few at the end of it wasn't the end of the world. But it's that kind of thing where if you don't know all the little hidden tricks, you can get caught out.
But yeah, the point is, 40k stratagems are all unique, but also allow you to get a certain degree of, I guess, reliability of what your army is doing. Meaning, it turns your attacks and your attack process, your attack resolution in 40k turns into playing a card, because Magic Gathering cards very rarely are random in the damage output on them.
Well, it's most Magic decks for forever now. I'm not barely touched the game in a long time now, but it's with Magic. Most of the good decks are ones that mitigate the randomness, let you go through your top few cards, or let you search cards out, or let you pull cards back from graveyard. It's always the route. Any game with a randomized element, if you've got a way to mitigate that or reduce that, it's going to be an unbelievable advantage. And it's what game is left once you do that is always about.
And that's why I feel this is anathema to wargaming, because the core point of wargaming, if you go all the way back to historical, where it was literally reenacting a battle and doing what if this happened?
Yeah.
Or could it have played out slightly differently based upon the odds? And the dice just go, fuck you. And so, Napoleon does win at Waterloo, or the Zulus do win at Rorke's Drift. Like, that can happen.
If you get right down to it, all wargaming, if it's got an element of you are placing rock, papers, and scissors down on the table.
Yeah.
But there's a chance that rock could beat scissors in, say, 1 in 5, 1 in 6 chances at times. So do you risk that? Is that worth chancing that? And that's the game design. And the second you start moving away from those core elements of like, this is good at killing that, but this is good at killing that, and then having universally good things like a dreadnought in Horus Heresy, which is just it's perfect for everything. Stick a power fist in one hand, twin last cannon in the other. That can kill anything, literally anything on the table. It's fair game. Once you start having those, or having mitigation, so I can control it. So actually, my rock can beat scissors 2/3 of the time, actually, because I've got a reroll. And that's the complexity of it, and that's the problem. That's the problem with balancing these games. And it's something that Games Workshop, despite being a colossal huge company with probably an underfunded set of staff, but still a set of staff fully devoted to doing this every 3 years, they still miss the mark more than they hit it.
It's interesting because, like, I was thinking about that again, like as you said, the rock paper scissors, and then you're trying to exploit where there's the imbalance in the rock paper scissors in your armies. Whereas, like, again, thinking back to how it happens in Warhammer Old World, more than likely, and then how it happens in Warmachine, you're exploiting when you're rolling that singular dice roll, really.
Yeah.
And it swings just the right way or the wrong way. So it's like that unit, you did actually break that unit, and it frickin' ran. like it's dead and it's gone, and you weren't expecting that. Or, you know, it's like the whole thing of like in Warmachine where you go, I made that roll to hit, and I didn't spend the boost to do it, so now I can actually boost the damage. And you just made that risk. You went, it's an 8 to hit. Do I risk, or do I risk it the other way? It's like I could have a confirmed hit, or I could go, I'll risk missing, so then I can do a bucket load of damage. And it's that meaningful choice. And I know we keep coming back to this on this podcast all the time, but I think it's just because we're in that place of wanting to design game systems currently, and and I will be doing so for Eldritch Automata. And it's all of this is just like an exploration of game design. I mean, I do need to play some other games by not Steamforged games and not
there's a whole lot out there.
I need to play the Batman Miniatures game, for God's sake. I've got it, and I've still not played the 3rd edition of it.
There's a bunch of really interesting ones. Really liking...
Warcrow looks good. They're doing some fun things with dice types in that, dice colours.
Really enjoying Turnip 28. The rule set on that is very... Because they've taken that rock, paper, scissors aspect, and they've taken the randomization aspect and just basically like built that into the way you play the game. Like it's very swingy, and it's all going to be like you nothing is reliable and everything will die is basically like the mantra of that design, and it's quite nice, and I'm quite enjoying that. I'm going to Turnip Con in November because that's at the Outpost.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll have to come down and just have a look at it.
And we're trying to pull together something horrible for that, like a horrible cult. It's probably going to be skeletons in hats because I love skeletons in hats. And
I saw some really good skeleton cowboys, ghostly skeleton cowboys. I'll try and find those again because I was like, that's kind of cool. Because I'm also looking at there's a cowboys skirmish game which comes with some nice plastic terrain, and I was like, oh, plastic, old, Wild West terrain. That's good. I can use that for Warmachine. Use that easily for Warmachine. Right. I think we've ranted on enough. Our take home is it's exhausting. Wargaming exhausting with rules changes, and we want meaningful dice rolls. But clearly, you should be all playing specialist games of Warmachine and don't bother playing with the mainline games. No.
Or just play 2nd or 3rd edition.
2nd or 3rd edition, yeah. I will be going to look for PDFs so I can look at a Tyranid or an Eldari army. If I can make an Eldari army that literally involves painting 20 models, I am in. That'll be so cool. Just thinking about that is exciting. Like, that's just so simple. Anyway, things that are coming up. So I said there's already an episode out where I interview Chris Allen, who is a writer for Onyx Path on various RPGs and other RPGs not by Onyx Path. He also has written novellas for Onyx Path for their games, and he has written 4, I would say, short stories or novellas for Black Library, and is working on his first novel for Black Library.
Nice.
So that was all really interesting because we've been talking about narrative in war games and narrative in RPGs, and then how you translate that to doing actual writing like novels and stories and fiction, because fiction and rules and ludo narrative dissonance are all fun things to deal with. So that was cool. There's also the first episode out on the deep dive on how to play Cult. I have got to edit the video version of that episode still. So that will go out then. And then we'll be recording the character creation and playing a session of that. I'm organizing some cool stuff related to Warhammer RPGs. I'll say more about that once plans are in motion. If you're going to Gen Con, you can play demos of Trash Humanism, which is the RPG I'm developing with the musician Le Destroy. We won't have the quick start on sale in time for that now. Things have moved, timelines and so forth, because it's just life is difficult and things. Plus, we set ourselves a ridiculous timeline in the first place, I think. So reality hit hard. And then I think we've got PeachCon August 10th. I will be running Warmachine demos there.
Should be there. In some regard. I don't know if I've got anything to remember.
It'd be great. It'll be great. It'll be great running Warmachine all day. And then my plan for conventions after that is I don't think I'm going to make Tabletop Scotland this year. I think that's going to be. I'll be looking at things next year once we're into like the Kickstarter kind of and post Kickstarter for Trash Humanism. But I'm definitely. I should really book a hotel for it actually. So I can overnight it, is what is it called? Dragon Meat in London. Because that's now at the XL Centre. So it's on the far east part or east end of London near the docks. So it is technically easier to get to and drive to because you do not need to go into fucking Hammersmith. So that's the plan for that. I can't think of any other good gaming convention stuff currently that I could think of.
No, I'm quite. PeachCon will be there.
Yeah.
Probably just
Bring Out Your Lead is the same weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
I can't be asked doing that one if I'm doing PeachCon.
I will be at TournamentCon in November in Sheffield, which
cool.
Should be stupid. And other than that, just be. Now I'm a Lead Belt resident. I'll be at Warhammer World and TSN Arena more often, I should think. So
that'll be good.
Tell me my opinions are wrong.
I will have to come down and, like I say, we'll have to get some Warmachine in and Trench Crusade once I've actually painted stuff up.
Yes, I've got my warband finished now, so I can.
Yeah, I need to still put mine together and paint. I saw Dave at MS Paints do his Grimdark stuff using the what are they called? Grimdark, the enamels.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I'm still kind of scared by using oil. I don't know why. I just feel like, am I going to do this right?
It doesn't matter if you do it wrong because it's you can keep doing it. Because I've got fully painted Black Grail warband now, which got all of I got the full one, and that took me an afternoon because they're all naked and they're just covered in oozing wounds. I just did a nice zenithal like flesh color, and then just got a load of gross purples and loads of gross reds.
This is my thing is when I paint them, when I do the initial acrylics on them for Heretic Legion, I actually need to do my colours lighter than I would normally go for because then I'm going to grim them down. Yeah.
I would recommend for your first dips into oils, rather than doing the full slather the whole model and then pull it all off, just play around, just like try moving some oil a bit. Because I'm doing less of the just covering the whole thing in streaking grime and then pulling it off with a cotton bud, and more just like painting a little bit and then like getting a clean brush with a bit of spirits and moving the paint around, because it gives you a lot more control and it's quite a nice technique.
I might well have to toy with that once I've got my Scorn painted and other things. Right, that's everything from this episode of Realm of Fire. Thank you again, Mark. We didn't even do an introduction. This is Mark. I'm Chris. Darker Days Radio, www.darker-days.org. Find us on Instagram at Darker Days Radio. Find us on on everywhere else but Twitter. You can go on TikTok and YouTube for shorts that I put up. Doc Ether, I do shorts of my armies, and I will do more when I've got other things painted up. And yeah, that's about it. Cool. Right, that's everything. Thanks again, Mark, and we'll chat again soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.